In this podcast, there is some subject matter that may be triggering to the listener. Caution is advised.
Here, now can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Super.
It's nice meeting you.
Thank you. Same with you. I really appreciate when I listen to your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do ask that anything with my personal family is off limits. I just have to put that out there in terms of it's about me and my story, and I leave my siblings and other people out of it.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Thank you.
My space is one about safety and security. So there's at times people, because of the energy and the space that I hold, people feel very safe to talk.
Mhm.
And so there's things that they speak, and then after they're like, I don't want that on the podcast. I'm like, no problem.
Wow.
It's like it was a healing for you to be able to speak about it. And this podcast isn't about, of course, I want numbers. Of course, I want awareness. Yet the first thing that's a priority of this podcast is safety and healing.
I truly appreciate that. It's just interesting how I have to sometimes say it because I never assume anything in this world.
Of course.
So that's why I said that. But again, so I'm very grateful. Ready to rock and roll?
Yeah. That's that boundary work. And again, CYA, cover your own ass, that nothing is just assumed. I'm making it clear how I want to be treated and what is going to be discussed. So there's no invisible interpretations or stuff. So I really appreciate that. Reminder too of the boundary work.
Thank you. Took me about 50 years to say that, but I got it out.
And you're
it's like the old saying. Yeah, you can teach senior dog, it's like you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Yeah. Well, I'm proof that you can.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Susan. I'm so thankful you're here with me.
I'm so thankful to be here with you, Natalie, too. Thank you.
Will you join me in a meditation so we can sync our hearts and drop into the now?
I'd love to. Thanks.
I'm going to ask the listeners that if you are driving or running, I know you've heard this in many of the podcasts, please do not close your eyes. We want you to be safe while keeping others safe. Yet the other prompts that I'm going to bring us through, you're able to follow that no matter what you're doing in activity. So, Susan, I'll ask you to close your eyes and get comfortable. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. Don't try to control your breath. Just observe it, allowing you to observe your biology, what's going on inside. There may be sensations or feelings that may be coming up in the body. You're safe to feel them. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into your body. Keep your awareness on your breath. Still staying with your breath at your own time and at your own pace. You're going to gently open your eyes while still staying with your breath. How's your heart doing?
It's very calm. My throat's opened up, and I'm thankful for that.
Can you let the listeners know who Susan is?
Susan, that's a good question. I'm a New Englander. I love the Four Seasons. And I'm also kind of an urban chick. I've lived in big cities such as Washington, D.C., and Boston and Minneapolis. So part of me is really much of an urban chick. But as I've gotten older, sometimes cities are too overstimulating for me. So I need the country and I need to be around. When I say country, I just mean like a plot of green. So I'm also, let's see, who's Susan? I'm a beginning pickleball player. I'm great at things like eating ice cream every day of the year. And I've been on a spiritual path for about 2 or 3 decades. And I try to really kind of live in the moment as much as I can each day. And I'm a late bloomer, and I just published my first book at around age 60. And now I'm on my third one, and it just got released. It's called The Bow Tie. So for those out there that say, oh, I can't do it, I'm too old, or I need to go back to school, you're never, ever, ever too old. You can always do it. And it just takes a step-by-step process for anything. Whatever you want to do in life, just do it. Break it down step by step. And I'm proof. At age 60, I published my first book. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Thank you for that inspiration and that motivation for myself and the listeners to always remind ourselves that if you can see it, it's possible.
Yes.
Can you let us know what that spiritual journey has been for 2 decades?
Well, when I was younger, I'm an incest survivor, and it came out later in life, late 30s, and I had horrid flashbacks and things like that. And at that time, there was never any help. There wasn't really any help. You just kept it quiet. You didn't tell anybody. You just locked it in. And that's what I did. And then it kept coming out more and more. And there was really no place to turn to. I kind of went on my own journey within. And I healed a lot of myself that way through reading like Thich Nhat Hanh or, a lot of spiritual books or Gandhi. And I did a really lot of meditation and prayer work. And that was a great release, but it still wasn't quite enough. And what I did is my heart kept pounding. I worked a lot in hospitality, doing things like being a bridal attendant, anywhere from there to being a dishwasher and doing all sorts of things in the food industry. And I also was a writer on the side, and then I eventually got paid as a freelancer. And my heart kept pounding, and it kept saying, you've got to write these stories. And I ignored it. And to the point where the heart just would not, you've got to stop writing at the newspaper, and you've got to start writing these stories. And so I did. And what I did is when I wrote the stories, they were sugar-coated. They were like a Hallmark version. Mm. And I gave them to an editor, and the editor said, they're just not, they're flat. Something's missing. And that meant that I had to go back, and I did a lot of research on the subject of incest in the perpetrators, on the whole dynamics. And it was very hard for me. It was very hard to sleep at nights because, a lot of stuff came back personally. But I got through it, and I redid the book from the beginning. This is my first book, Moments of Time, and I redid it. And I made it so that there's situations that, will be uncomfortable for some readers. And I did it. I wrote, a lot. It's fiction, but there are elements of Moments in Time with 16 Men that are reflective of my life. And then what I did is I got this idea to write of one of the characters in the book. And I'm not going to tell you which one. And it's a spinoff. It's called The Bow Tie. And I dug deeper, this time, again, deeper into the whole dynamics of what happens and the steps involved of healing. And it was the protagonist is a lovely girl. Her name is Jennifer Grace Donnelly. And she's an award-winning teacher. She has to abruptly stop her teaching life mid-career because her past has come to haunt her. And she's got to piece all the pieces together. And she hits rock bottom. But then she climbs herself up. And in her version, she does get help. And she makes it. And so with trauma, most of us all of us really have had trauma of some sort, but there's trauma and then there's some trauma that's really more severe with a capital T. What you do with it, it's ultimately your decision. That you've got to, first of all, accept what happened and acknowledge it. And then little by little, take the action steps of, get a professional. And sometimes a professional isn't always going to work. You've got to shop around. It's not a one size fits all. It's not what the latest TikTok says. And it's bit by bit, but it is so worth it on the other side because you really get to know yourself and you get to realize how fabulous you really are. I mean, we are all children of God. We have that element in us. And that's what you want to tap into. You want to return to your heart. It's always about returning to your heart. Your heart never lies. Oh, I mean, I could say it does lie. Let's say you're in a very romantic situation and your endorphins are going crazy. That's kind of that romantic love. But generally speaking, your heart never lies. It didn't lie to me. It said, you've got to keep writing. You've got to write this book. And it kept pounding. So it's really your journey. And it starts with baby steps. And that's what I did. I did with the bow tie. And it's something actually I'm really grateful for doing because it was a healing process for me as well as Jennifer.
Yeah, I was going to say, writing that book was probably the best kind of therapy you could do with yourself because you really dived into those wounds, into hearing other people's stories that reactivated your own stories, navigating through the way that you interpreted things, and then surrendering those definitions and changing those definitions, and really coming back to the love within yourself. Yet that was warrior work.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
It was really like going open heart surgery, emotionally. Right. Yes. And the thing is, I just turned 65. Oh, so sorry, 66, about a week ago. And I really feel like I am on like another level. I'm really going upward. And there's times where I'm really going to mess up. And I'm okay with that. Where before I was like, oh my God, once I'm spiritual, everything's going to fall into place. And, it's like, oh my God. That's the other thing is that sort of toxic positivity of spirituality. It's like, I just can't do that. It's sort of like I did go through a little bit of a phase and I thought, God, this isn't working. It's like, life is hard and it's going to throw you a lot of curveballs and you may strike out, but you got to get back. You got to get back on the field, and so that's what I did is you constantly, it's okay to hit down, slow down. It may take a week or a month. You might have to slow, but you eventually got to get back and we're all going to make mistakes and we're going to learn, but that's where we learn. And I'm still evolving. I'm really kind of excited because I don't know what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years. I'm kind of really excited, but, life is a roller coaster. It's up and down. And to me, I could just made it up. It's a spiritual roller coaster.
It really is. It's a good description of it. And, I'm thankful that you brought out the language too, that of the toxic positivity. And sometimes that spirituality makes it seem like, oh, well, everything will be figured out. Whatever life challenges, you're not to feel anything. Everything will be blissful or peaceful. And it's like, to be human is traumatic. You may have, faced the childhood trauma yet life is impermanent. So it's going to wrestle and tussle on beliefs and emotions and feelings. And I was there too at one point where there's a part where, yeah, you could use your mind to only guard yourself to see a certain way, yet you're not allowing yourself to be experiencing the human experience. It's just
Exactly.
this spirituality. And then where is the relatability with other people? Where is the
Yes.
vertical of depth of feeling and being in the living?
Yeah. My feeling is that people who I see, like one of the most spiritual people I know is a dishwasher. And she doesn't preach about it. She just, you have to watch her and listen to her. She's amazing. And to me, it's always a lot of the spiritual people I know are kind of regular everyday people,
Mhm.
and they don't shout their spirituality. They walk it quietly. And that's what
Mhm.
I aspire to do, you know. Because people always go, oh, how do you do that? And it's I just sort of like, how do you become spiritual? I said, well, you know what? It starts with the breath. That's what I say. If you want to really connect with yourself, you start with the breath. And in my book, The Moments in Time with 16 Men, and with the bow tie, what I have is Jennifer and her toolkit that she has. And you learn what works for her. And then I also have a parallel character. She is the owner of the card shop where Jennifer works. And Jennifer has kind of a flashback breakdown. And the owner goes back. She doesn't know what's happened to Jennifer and why. And then she closes the shop. She goes back and she talks to Jennifer. And then Jennifer realizes that Alicia had the same experience with her stepfather. So Alicia is really like a guardian angel for her. And what's very interesting, though, is I purposely had it that what Alicia does for healing is very different than Jennifer. So I do that to show how people have to realize what works for them may not work for another person. Like Jennifer was not able to get a massage. She didn't want anybody to touch her.
Mm.
Whereas Alicia says, oh, it works for me. And another thing was like Jennifer did running, or she made origami like this. I don't know if you origami swans. She wrote her forgiveness work on that. So, and Alicia did gardening. So again, it's this contrast
Mhm.
that I show on purpose that makes it so that as an individual, when you have situations that are hard in life and you want to heal, you can pick and choose. And also too is what works 20 years ago, like for
Mhm.
me, may not work now. So you've got to constantly like tweak it. It's like tuning up a car. If you go and you let your car service once you got to kind of tweak your tools.
Mhm.
And, the breath work constantly works for me. And that's what like in the beginning, when we did it, that really was just very grounding. And I let people know is you can do breath work anywhere. You can do it in the elevator. You don't have to order it from Amazon. You don't have to make an appointment. And it's just 3 breaths. And what it does is it slows you down. But the thing is, people say, oh, I'm too busy to do the 3 breaths. And
And
it's
that's what
like,
it is most.
yes. So it's sort of like you've got to stop, pause, and be aware when you're at the height of your emotions to try to do the 3 breaths or as soon as you can. So it's that awareness. That is the pivotal key to changing your life, is to be aware of the monkey chatter, to be aware of those ego thoughts, and to say, oh, that's what they are. And it's sort of like they say, I've heard this analogy. It's sort of like if you're watching a movie and you're sitting in this seat, you can look at it, all your ego thoughts are on the screen, but you can be detached from them. So
Yeah.
that's the whole hope, is the ego is always going to be there. It's always going to try to be in demand and try to take the driver's seat. And your God self, it's almost, it's up, well, it's up and down. It's a fight, a battle between the two. Well, God, not so much, but the ego. And it's sort of like it's a dance. And I've got to just decide who's going to be in charge. And definitely the ego is sometimes, but then I try to be aware of it and sort of just let it pacify it. I kind of pacify it and not fight it, just sort of accept that that's there. Those are some nasty thoughts, and I don't need them. And it softens the ego. And so you're not fighting, because when you fight with the ego, it just escalates and it takes over your life.
As I saw it in my own life, the ego for me is the nervous system and its defense mechanisms. And until you start engaging with your biology, you're not even aware that you are wearing this suit of clothing, this identity, and these defense mechanisms are, and it's a blessing to have these defense mechanisms. All they're doing is trying to protect you. Like the main focus of the nervous system, don't die. And at times, the pain is so much that you want to cut off the feeling because you've suppressed your emotions. You've suppressed being connected to your worth, to your love, to vulnerability. And that in itself is very painful and a lot of suffering. So really, and if you fight your defense mechanisms, you will never be able to override your biology. It's being able to work with it, being able to understand, okay, my nervous system is activated. And like you said, everybody says that they're too busy to meditate or catch their breath. And it's like, well, you don't do this when you're busy. It's like you don't go learning how to swim when you're panicking, drowning. You learn step by step when you are in a calm state, so that when you're in these big hypervigilant states or triggered states, that hopefully your awareness is stretched enough that, wait, there's a tool to get me out of this. There's
Exactly.
a tool to take me off the ledge. There's a tool that can open up the expansion. Yet it's doing it consistently, which can feel very mundane and wonder, oh, what's the point? Yet when you all of a sudden are in these elevated states and you can access that breath, you're like, that's why I've been doing this all this time. And you're able to respond to a situation rather than the reaction, or you're able to create a space. You may not have the response yet you created that space. And it's, a process. And it's really having that compassion. I understand that we are in a microwave society or Amazon Prime the next day or even this day of wanting something to just and make it all go away. And that's not what the inner work is. That's not what spirituality is.
Right. No, it's an ongoing process. And it's almost the antithesis of sort of the Amazon mode, like order it and get it in 5 minutes. It's a process. And particularly in American society, it's instant gratification is like, boy, it's still prominent. And you've got to realize that spirituality is almost the opposite of that. It's a relearning. It's a step-by-step relearning and realigning with your neurological system and your thoughts. And really, in the beginning, it's more like a tune-up, and then it's a rewiring, and then it's a whole different makeup. I've noticed in the last few years that, I think with COVID, I just like, oh my God, I'm either gonna, it's just so overwhelming at it. So many situations going on with my mom and dying and just a really lot that I thought, oh my God, I've got to either, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I had to really, really address this. And I was getting so stressed out and so overwhelmed that I had to almost start over again in my spirituality. And now I've just sort of rewired myself so that I guess the big secret is I compartmentalize. I do things in increments and I don't get so overwhelmed. And that's a really good tool for me. But I used to get much more overwhelmed. And that's what I'd really like for people to just take life not so much like the hamster on the hamster wheel, really less is more, and really just start with a breath and slowly and learn about it. And when you learn about it, then you can incorporate it into your life.
Exactly.
And yeah,
My friend always reminded me at the beginning because I almost died 10 years ago. So that's what really pushed me into the sea of spirituality and understanding the nervous system. And she used to always tell me, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yeah, I know you want to eat this whole big elephant and get over it, yet it is impossible to eat an elephant in one sitting. You eat it with one bite at a time, and you have to chunk it down for yourself.
exactly.
Yet when you're impulsive and hypervigilant, it's like go, 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 just rush and get it done. And if I get to this place, all will be okay. But you get to that place and all is not okay. It's still more and more and more, and it's never ending, where it's like, wait, drop into the now, not into a place that you think will bring safety. Be that safety within yourself.
Right, exactly.
The
And
journey back into the body.
right. And one of the tools, if I could, there was a quote that I wanted to read, or passage in my book. This is the book. I don't know. It's called The Bow Tie. And what's really
Congratulations.
cool, thank you. And also too was featured in Reesday, which is a indie publishing. They don't do publishing as such, but they get you to that point of publishing in England. And it got Best Women's Fiction in their last newsletter. So I'm really excited because that really means a lot to me. And I've gotten consistently 5-star reviews. People have said that it's really moved them. And so I'm very grateful, because my goal is to really empower women so that they can really take a step to do some work to heal themselves. I'm going to read you a passage, and one of the tools that Jennifer does is forgiveness work. And that's always, whereas Alicia, the car shop owner, could not forgive her stepfather, but Jennifer can. So I'm showing you the contrast. And this is a passage. Okay, so I'm going to read it. It was golden hour as Jennifer, this is Portland, Maine, back in Portland, Maine, parked her car near a grassy spot overlooking the Atlantic. She spread out her favorite blue blanket and opened her craft box. Inside were dozens of origami swans she made from her unmailed forgiveness letters that she'd written to her father, uncle, and mother. There was also one paper boat in which she placed the bow tie. The tide was going out as she walked down to the ocean with her box of swans. She stood knee-deep in the water and gazed out at the brilliant blue horizon. She thought about what a peaceful evening it was, and she felt grateful. She thought about how far she'd come and how thankful she was to be alive. Gazing down at her box of paper swans, she remembered the day, now years in the past, when she made them with her students, telling the kids never to forget how much they mattered. At last, she was learning to listen to herself. Tears spilled down Jennifer's face as she dropped the birds in the water one by one. The boat containing the bow tie followed last. She gave it a little push. Jennifer watched her pain, transformed into art, float toward the horizon. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she inhaled the salty ocean air, and her face broke involuntarily into a smile, a real smile, full of joy and peace for no one but herself in the vast, open ocean. So that's Jennifer and forgiveness.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And what a beautiful gift of alchemy you have provided to people. You've taken the impurities and you've transformed them into gold, and not only kept it for yourself, you're sharing it for others so that they can have that alchemy in their own life.
And one thing too is this has been an international effort, my books. For example, I have the audiobook, and it was someone in Vancouver Islands reading the audiobook. The cover is done by someone in South Africa, and I worked with her on that. And then the editing was done by someone by England. And then one of the guys who originally started with my webpage lives in Brooklyn. So, oh, and I have others, but it's kind of an international effort. So I'm just like it's kind of cool. So
It is.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
And that's a big thing to, trauma, what it does to a lot of people is it makes it difficult to receive and trust. And so you really stepping in and doing that warrior work and collaborating with all different parts of the world to allow yourself to feel soft and belonging here and connecting with so many different types of cultures and personalities. Warrior work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that a percentage of my books sold, each book sold goes to the New Horizons Domestic Violence Services in Middlesex County, Connecticut. So each year I give them money because that's important to empower other women and get them some help.
Thank you. God, universal law, whatever name you call your higher spirit, when you surrender, you really are blown away by things. And, doing the podcast is having guests like you make it so worth doing the podcast, having conversations and, being infected and affected by your energy to allow me that when there's times that are challenging to be inspired by your energy, to get up and still show up.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Yeah.
This is very touching to me because it's very close to home. Are you able to talk a little bit about how you've navigated through that, the shame?
I think what it is it's worthiness for me. I had a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I felt disgusting. I felt gross. I felt dirty at times in my life. And little by little, as I did spiritual work, I just kind of shifted. And I think the big key for me was feeling worthy. That's in the last 10 to 15 years. Again, as we evolve as individuals, I think when I was first starting out, maybe in my late 40s, I was feeling more that my body felt disgusting. But then as I evolved and learned, it was more growing into my own element, my heart self. And so now, I do a lot of prayer work. I mean, I still work very hard. I do a lot of prayer work. I do a lot of healing for myself and the world as much as I can. But I never really talk about it, but I do, gratitude work. And I think now it's feeling worthy, feeling loved, and that I am loving. And, the other big thing was feeling supported. For years, I never felt supported. It was just me in the world, and it was a battle. And I never felt supported because I couldn't talk to anybody about this. And it's just in the last 5 years, my back, for example, last year really was in pain, and I knew it was emotional. And it was to the point where it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just went back and back and dug and dug. And it was because I didn't feel supported, and it was a metaphysical thing. And I do believe in a lot of times things. And I mean, it was really bad, and I'm in good shape. I work out. It was not a physical. And so I had to, again, I spent a month. I had to really do a lot more healing and forgiveness work. So that's why I say it's an ongoing process. In 5 years, you think you're doing well, and then boom, something may hit and you've got to address it. But see, one of the big things is feeling supported. And now And I sometimes have a hard time remembering the word support. What is it? And then I adjust it. I am fully supported by the universe. That's the big thing, that I'm loved and I love myself, and the universe has my back.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. If there's a listener listening in that is going through their journey of any sexual trauma or incest or trauma in that sense, what are words that you would want to leave them with?
I would say find one person that you really trust. Just one. It's sort of like it takes one person that can really damage you. It takes one person that can love and trust you. One person to talk about the situation and make sure that it's confidential. And then two is seek some support of a hotline or help and get a professional person and make sure it's a good fit. Even when someone's really vulnerable, it's very hard. It's like you're going to the emergency room. It's really hard to kind of speak and vote, and you don't know what the doctors or nurses, but as much as you can, make sure it's a good fit and get help and really surround yourself with nurturing people and try, if you can, to get away from that situation as soon as you can. That isn't always the case, but as soon as you can get away. So I would say in a nutshell is acknowledge the situation and don't deny it. Acknowledge that this is what happened. Two is talk to someone. It could be a grandmother, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone that you really trust. Three is there's a lot of hotlines out there now. Seek professional help and make sure that that person's really the professional person's really going to help you. And be patient. It's going to take a while, just be patient with yourself and really love yourself and give yourself a hug. It's really important to give yourself a hug. I forget that, to give yourself a hug.
Yeah. Release that oxytocin for yourself. We need human touch. And at least especially when you've had sexual trauma, as you said with the characters, one person could get massages, another one couldn't get massages. That human touch feels very threatening if it's from someone else, because you don't know what their intentions are, if they're going to put you in a vulnerable state to harm you after. Yet you know your own touch, and we forget to access that to remind ourselves you can feel your touch and hug yourself and feel that love and that sense of being wanted and a surrender too.
Yes, yeah. And I just sort of started doing that, like a few years ago, because I would never give myself a hug. And it's like, why not?
Exactly. I know the listeners are wanting to know, where can I find this woman's information? So could you let them know how they can get in touch with you?
Sure, I'd love to, Natalie. You can go to susanglenny.com/newsletter, and you can go to Amazon. And my name is Susan Glenny, Glenney. And you can get one of my 3 books, or you can get 2 of them, or you can get all 3, whatever you like. And there's audio, and then there's paperback, and there's Kindle. And it would really mean a lot if you purchased my book. I'd really love that. And I think, for some of you out there, it would really help you with your journey.
I already have a person in mind that I'm going to send the book to, and I'm also going to purchase it also. And for the listeners, please leave reviews. It really matters. And all of her information will be in the show notes so that it's very clickable and easy, since, it can be a struggle for people to do research and find out stuff. So I'm going to make it as easy as possible, because I want you to be fully supported and be encouraged that the work that you're doing makes such a difference in this world, Susan. It's greatly appreciated.
I'm so thankful for you saying that. It makes me feel that it was worthwhile doing the book when I hear people like you, giving me the support. See, again, that's the key word, support. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, dear.
Please remember to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. That's so true.
Are you willing to share what the intention was that you had in the meditation?
My intention was it sounds a little corny, but my intention is that we are all God's children, and to be really loving to everybody, and that's what we need in the world, to
Yeah.
just be present in love.
That wasn't corny. Not at all.
Thank you.
Not at all. It's very deep. It's very, very deep. Very deep. I want to bring you into a reflective question.
Sure.
I want to ask you to bring this awareness right now and to go back to your 18-year-old self. And you have 3 words to tell your 18-year-old self to bring you to the journey to now. What would those words be?
You are so much more than what happened to you. Do not be a victim of what happened to you. You are so much more. You are a loving child of God, and nothing can change that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being you, Susan.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.